You're having an interaction with someone in American English and you want to end it on a positive note or you want to start it on a positive note, but you also want to try to sound as natural as possible. Things like linking, reductions, breath, all those things that you hear native speakers doing, you want to try applying yourself. How can you do it? Well, today that's going to be our focus. We're going to talk about how to say some polite phrases in American English to someone that you're talking to. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to your daily American English pronunciation show, which is Wake Up American. We are here Monday through Friday, typically between the hours of 7 and 8 a.m. New York, to make sure that you can get in your 5 to 10 minutes of pronunciation practice for the day. And to guide you in this process, there is me. Hello, my name's Jeff. Rise of Breath. That's one of the four keys to American English pronunciation, including placement, pitch, breath. Trying to weaken your consonant sounds in order to strengthen your vowel sounds. We got a couple phrases for you, so I'm just going to kind of show you the phrase. I'm going to give you a second to think about how would you say the phrase yourself, and then we'll talk about what are some strategies for making it sound a little bit more natural in American English, including this very first one here. Okay, and you can replace here with like see or talk to, things like that. But this phrase, once you say it to yourself, I would personally say this as like happy to hear from you. Happy to hear from you. Okay, so what's happening there? So the stress is on here, so we're raising the pitch on here. It's like to hear. And then after here, nothing else is stressed. So we're moving down in pitch after that. It's like hear from you, hear from you, hear from you. And remember, American English is really focused on vowel sounds, not on consonant sounds. So I don't need to say like hear from you, because that's a little bit too firm on everything. I really just am worried about that ear, ooh. Let's try to just link that ear, 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 hear from you, ear, hear from you. Okay, so you kind of see what's going on there. How about the first part? So the first part's not stressed either because the stress is just on here. So everything before it's also going to be moving down. It's like happy, da, da. We've talked about right before a stress, you want to go extra down in pitch. Okay, so that da sound, that middle, that two is going to be really low. Da here, da here, da here. Do you see how it's kind of doing that jump to here? It's like happy to hear, happy to hear, happy to hear, happy to hear. You want to try to get that sort of movement around your stress. It's like happy to hear from you, happy to hear from you, happy to hear from you. Okay. Some other opportunities that you can do with this as well. You can reduce the you to like yeah. So instead of saying happy to hear from you, you can say happy to hear from you, happy to hear from you. Things like that. So that kind of just gives you an idea of some of the linking and things you can do with that phrase. Let's look at another one. So that was happy to. Another little phrase you see a lot is like good to, good to. Okay. So instead of saying, when you look at this, maybe you said this to yourself as like good to see you, which is understandable. Maybe not the most natural sounding, which you actually hear a lot of people saying. I think a more common way you hear this pronounced is like good to see you, good to see you, good to see you. So again, some things we're seeing. Stress is on C, so we need to go higher in pitch on C, and that U becomes like you or yeah. It's like see you, or see ya. Okay. In fact, that's why a lot of times if you ever see people texting, they may write that last part see ya as just like this, like CYA, just a note. Um, okay, so the good to will get reduced as well and linked. So instead of saying good to, you'll very often hear it as like good to, good to, good to, good to. See how weak the G is? See how weak the D is? Okay, it's like good to, good to. It's like good to see you, good to see you. You have to make sure you go down in pitch on the duh or the two before you do your higher pitch on C. Good to see, good to see, good to see, good to see you, good to see you, or good to see you, good to see you. Things like that. Hello to Mr. Me 63. Great to see you. Thank you for stopping by. Look at that. Good to see you, or great to see you, right? I have to run to a class in a moment. So let's do maybe one final one, which you can use as a close. And hopefully, this will give you lots of ideas for linking and things like that in your daily life. So we have this phrase here. Take a moment to ask yourself, how would you say this? Okay. Stress will be on meat. and with the U after it, a couple of things you could do. You could say meet you, meet you. You could say meet ya, meet ya. Or because that T, when it links with a y sound or U sound after it, it can become like a ch. So that might turn into like meet you, or meet ya, meet ya. Okay. Don't go too heavy on the T or the ch sound, whichever you use. Everything before it is not stressed. So that means that that duh, that two needs to go low in pitch again. And everything before it is going to kind of be working its way down in pitch. It's like a pleasure the, a pleasure the, a pleasure the, a pleasure the. And then we get meet. A pleasure to meet. A pleasure to meet. A pleasure to meet. If you find that hard, like a pleasure to meet, like a very choppy and heavy consonant sounds, really focus on your vowels. It's like era, 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 a pleasure to, era, a pleasure to, era, a pleasure to meet you, a pleasure to meet you. Okay, so things like that. I do need to run to my class now, guys. Hopefully, that gives you some things to consider for linking and breath and things like that. Hello to Emmanuel. Good to see you. Mr. Me asks a question here. How do you? Oop, you guys are getting a laugh. Sorry about that. Press the wrong button. As how to emphasize the R. I wouldn't worry too much about the R sound. I know that American English obviously pronounces R sounds, but we don't want them to become the dominant sound. So it's not pleasure. You know, the sound basically you want has lots of breath and it's not too closed off in the throat. It needs to be present but not dominant. The sound we're going for is somewhere like an pleasure, play. Sure. The other thing too is that you don't need to emphasize it. Okay, because it's not your stress syllable. In pleasure, the stress is on play. It's like pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. See how like soft and weak that the R sound is. So it's not your focal point. It's not your point of emphasis. So the R sound you don't really want too strong there. Otherwise, it's going to kind of take over the word if you're not careful. Okay, so definitely watch out for that. We have to be really careful with R sounds. We have to be careful with like L sounds, P sounds, B sounds, because what will happen if we're not careful is those are just going to completely take over your words. In fact, if you want more practice with R sounds, this leads me to a great note. I definitely would encourage you to check out Elsa, who helps make these streams possible. Elsa basically has different pronunciation tests, and I think Elsa it's an app on your phone that does a really good job of identifying like the small stuff. So like specific vowel sounds and consonant sounds. So if you find it like, for instance, you have a hard time with R sounds, or maybe you confuse pairs like sit and see, or you confuse pairs like lock and luck. Elsa might be a good app to download because they have lots of individual practice exercises and can give you immediate feedback. They have free pronunciation tests that you can take. And you also, with the link I have in the video description and in the chat, or in the comments after, if you use that link, you'll get access to like the premium for free for like a week, which is enough time to kind of get practicing, record yourself, and then when the premium expires, you can just listen to your recordings, or if you like it, you can keep it. But I would definitely recommend trying that out if you have specific consonants or vowels that you find difficult. With that, guys, I do have to run to my class, but thanks for hanging out with me. I will see you all later. Hope you have a good weekend. Take care. Have a good day. Have a good night and a good afternoon.